Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy here for the Daily Blob where we say, wait a minute, I think we've already talked about this before. Hey, didn't we already talk about the Microsoft layoffs before? I feel like we've done a couple of videos on Microsoft layoffs, right? There were the May layoffs, 6,000 people, something like 3% of the workforce was going to get laid off because it was the end of the fiscal year. I remember this. We had this whole conversation on the end of the fiscal year and why they were trying to eliminate people before the new fiscal year began. Yeah, and then we talked about the Xbox layoffs, and then they continued the layoffs in the Xbox division. So this news here, is this simply them implementing the layoffs that they did before? Is that what's going on? No, apparently not. Apparently no. This is a new set of around the layoffs. You know how they needed to lay off 6,000 people before the end of the fiscal year to make sure their books are in order? Well, yeah, apparently they need to do even more layoffs at the beginning of the new fiscal year to make sure their books are even more in order. I don't know what to tell you people. This is the sad thing. This is a sad thing. I was doing these one-on-one calls, right? I was doing these one-on-one meetings with my students, and I wanted to do these talks to explain more about Python, right? I have all these classes on Python. You run into a problem with Python. I wanted to be able to help walk you through your problems with Python. Oh, you're trying to connect Python to SQL, create a web app or something like that. I wanted to work through these problems, right? Help my students be able to solve their problems so that they can solve other people's problems, right? That was my idea. That was my idea. It was a dumb idea. It was my idea. And instead, I got all these calls, right? I would sit there day after day taking all of these Zoom calls of people saying, I want a job, Eli. And then I'd say, okay, well, what kind of problems in technology do you want to solve? Oh, no. Okay, well, what kind of technology do you want to work on? Oh, no. Okay, so like what kind of environment do you want to work in? Oh, no. Okay, where do you want to see yourself in 5 years? Eli, you don't seem to understand. I want a job. Right, and that's the thing. I mean, again, all snark aside, they did not want to do technology work. They want a technology job, which I feel like sums up the past decade of the tech industry so very well. And anyways, I stopped taking those calls because I don't know what to tell people. I can help you solve problems. I can show you a path to solving problems. The issue is with getting a job, is this whole process has been insane, absolutely stupidly insane for about a decade now, right? And it's been insane for so long that people think asinine things are normal. Now, I talked about this before with Microsoft, putting keyword filters in for emails, right? The way we used to put in filters for swear words or something like that, they now put in keyword filters for Gaza and Palestine and apartheid. And there was literally a Microsoft employee that had apartheid in her email auto signature and then did not understand why Microsoft would have a problem with that. Oh golly! And I get a lot of pushback. I get a lot of screaming and pushback. Eli, you need to fight the power. It's like, well, that's fine. Fight the power all you want. But if they are your employer and you want to keep your job, maybe don't fight your employer. I don't know. Right? To get all this, but right, we've been in this wackadoodle world. The problem is, as I'm trying to explain to folks, right, you can put a rocket on a turkey, but that turkey ain't gonna fly. 1% interest rates for well over a decade made the tech industry fly. And it's coming back down to earth, and it ain't going to be a landing. At some point, the rocket will run out of fuel, and the turkey will come back in contact with the ground. But it is not something you would call a landing. And this comes up with Microsoft. And can I be honest with you? I'm actually surprised. It's not whether you're pessimistic. It's whether you're pessimistic enough. Holy shit. I literally had to research this to verify that this wasn't simply implementing the layoffs we talked about before. And they're like, no, these are new layoffs. These are new layoffs. 9,000 Microsoft employees are going to go away. And this is on top of the 6,000 Microsoft employees that were told to go the F away about a month ago in May. So when I'm doing this is the beginning of July. Sometime around the end of May, I did a video about this. And yeah, so they got rid of 6,000 people. And then they did some Xbox layoffs. And now they're doing 9,000 more employees because, wait for it, you're not actually that valuable. I talked about that before, talking with the old white guys, the old white men trying to understand the value of a thing, again, going all Aspie into values, equities, and commodities. Like, how do you know? And they said, you don't really. All you know is at an exact moment in time, when one person is willing to hand over this amount of cash for this particular product or service, at that one point in time, you know the value of something. You do not know the value beforehand. You do not know the value afterhand. You only know at that one moment. And so that's why in markets with large volume, it's useful, stock market, right? Because people are buying and selling constantly. So you have a pretty good idea what the consensus view of a value of something is. The issue is we have all these technology professionals out there that believe Node is worth $1 gazillion. I'm a Node developer. Ergo, I should make a lot of money. It's like, yeah, that's not really how it works. Here's the thing. There are technology problems that have a value to solve. If the technology you know solves that problem, then you can try to take your cut out of solving that problem. If, on the other hand, these large big tech companies, large tech companies in general, just hired way too many employees, way too many, tens of thousands of too many employees, all of a sudden your value goes down to get out, get out. Anywho, Microsoft laying off about 9,000 employees in latest round of cuts. Microsoft said Wednesday that it will lay off around 9,000 employees. The move will affect less than 4% of its global workforce across different teams, geographies, and levels of experience. The announcement comes on the second day of Microsoft's 2026 fiscal year. Right? They had to do 6,000 layoffs before because they had to do it before the end of the fiscal year. And now that we have a new fiscal year, well, now you do some more layoffs. Quote, we continue to implement organizational changes necessary to best position the company and the teams for success in a dynamic marketplace, a Microsoft spokesperson said in an email. So think about this. They are just dumping a tremendous amount of garbage because they see you as a tech employee basically as garbage at this point, right? I've been, my wife and I, we've been downsizing, right? We plan to move, hopefully. That's its own story, out of frame story. Anyways, downsizing. So I have all this stuff that's been going to Goodwill, right? You know, clothes have gone to Goodwill, and all kinds of stuff is going to Goodwill. Why? Because it no longer has any value. It doesn't even have the value of trying to sell it on Facebook Marketplace. Get it the hell out. I got too many of these things. I just need someplace to dump them. You, my friends, are now being put in the trash bag to get shipped off to Goodwill in Microsoft land. Microsoft has held several rounds of layoffs already this calendar year. In January, it cut less than 1% of the headcount based on performance. That was a performance headcount. The 50-year-old software company slashed more than 6,000 jobs in May. So that's what I thought this was originally. Like when I looked at this, I honestly thought it was like, oh, okay, well, they announced layoffs in May, and now they're implementing those layoffs. That's what I originally thought. That is not true. They did 6,000 layoffs in May, and now it's an additional 9,000. 15,000 layoffs, and some are on the order of about 2 months. And then at least 300 more in June. That was for Xbox, I do believe. As of June 2024, it employed 228,000 people. And in 2023, it laid off 10,000. So they are just doing layoffs after layoffs after layoffs. As was the case with the May layoffs, Microsoft is looking to reduce the number of layers of managers that stand between individual contributors and top executives, said the person who asked not to be named. Quote, to position gaming for enduring success and allow us us to focus on strategic growth areas, we will end or decrease work in certain areas of the business and follow Microsoft's lead in removing layers of management to increase agility and effectiveness. Phil Spencer, Microsoft CEO of Gaming, wrote in a Wednesday memo. Microsoft reported nearly $26 billion in net income on $70 billion in revenue from the March quarter. The numbers are well ahead of Wall Street's consensus, keeping Microsoft ranked as one of the most profitable companies in the S&P 500 index. So that's the other interesting thing about this too, is that Microsoft is actually a profitable company. One of the things I've talked about before with a lot of these tech companies, right? If you don't have a profit and you don't have revenue, and you don't have a lot of other things, you kind of make up numbers. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of these tech companies are dumping employees, is because they made up numbers and now they have to get rid of employees because they don't have enough money for them. One of the most interesting things about this with Microsoft is actually profitable. Microsoft is actually doing really, 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 really well, and yet they're dumping employees at the exact same time. Executives called for about, let's see here. Yeah, executives called for about a 14% year-over-year revenue growth in the June quarter, thanks to expected expansion in Azure Cloud Services and corporate productivity software subscription. So they're expecting 14% year-over-year growth. And getting rid of employees. Microsoft stock closed at a record high of $497.45 on June 26. So they're one of the most profitable companies out there. They expect their revenue to be up by 14% for June, and their stock closed at a record high, and they're dumping yet another 9,000 employees. So here's what I want to ask those people that call in to me. What advice am I supposed to give you right now? What magical words do you think is going to come out of my mouth that are going to get you a job? Especially when you don't want to solve technology problems to begin with. So anyways, yeah, we've just got more and more layoffs in the tech sector, and I would argue this is something I've screamed about for a long time. Reality is reality, gravity is gravity. You can strap a rocket to a turkey. It's not going to matter at the end of the day. I have argued for a long time, and any long-time viewer knows this, I believe we hit saturation, true saturation, in the tech industry in about 2017. This is one of those things where it's kind of like my view of the value of Tesla. Tesla should be a valuable company. It should not be worth more than every other car company in the world combined, right? There's a difference between valuable, and that valuable. The same thing is true in the tech world, right? The fact of the matter is, being a tech professional, this can still get you a good job. It can still get you a good lifestyle. This still has a future ahead of it. Again, coding is not going to go away. Tech jobs are not. The career of being a technology professional is not going to go away. But the issue that I've seen is, I think in about 2017, we just hit saturation for the jobs that actually need to be done. I've talked about this before. I was listening to an investor. So I was trying to figure out the startup investing world, because I was thinking about investing in startups until I realized how stupid that was. And one of the interesting things with investing in the startup world is I was watching this one guy, and his numbers are about what you hear. So he invests in 60 companies. Out of 60 companies, he expects 2 to be home runs. So 2 to be like the Facebooks or the Googles, right? 10 to be profitable, to be adequate, and basically all the others to fail miserably. So he helps fund 60 companies. Out of that, 48 startups are gonna go on the trash heap. Now, again, you start getting your head around that in the investment world with what that means. One of the important things to understand as an employee, that means 48 startups worth of employees are basically doing work that's not gonna go anywhere at the end of the day. Not even gonna get fucking acqui-hired. Just gonna go in the damn trash can. And the thing that you saw with so many tech companies when they had so much money, right? When there was this investor bubble in the tech industry out there was so much money going into startups, and so they would hire a lot of people, even though the end results were going to end up going in the trash can. You had a lot of these big tech companies, Google, right? Google, Meta, Facebook, at the time doing these moonshot programs, right? Remember when Facebook was literally designing these drone aircraft to fly 24 hours a day in order to beam internet down to places in Africa? Which, I mean, is fine. I'm not snarky on that, but it's kind of weird that Meta was doing it, right? Like you had these big tech companies, and they had so much extra money. They were throwing it in moonshots. And the idea with moonshots is basically that it's like an internal startup thing where you expect 20 to fail, but one is successful, and that makes up for everything else, right? But think about all of these projects. Think about all of these startups that had asses in seats, and the end work was going to go in the trash can. And most people pretty much assumed that the end work was going to go in the trash can. And so you had all these people getting paychecks to do worthless work. And then on top of that, with all the investment money coming in, you know, people, the companies were hiring to make it seem like they were successful. Look, if they're hiring, we should be hiring, right? They're a successful company. They're hiring. Ergo, we should hire because we're a successful company. Like we saw this with again the big tech companies, where I literally talked to a startup founder. This was a real startup founder conversation I had probably about 2.5, 3 years ago, and he said one of the big problems that he had is that the big tech companies were literally taking employees off the board, right? So if you're a startup company, you've got to figure out how much money you can pay an employee and how much equity you give them, the whole 9 yards. Well, any of these startup companies might be a competitor to big tech at the end of the day. So what big tech was doing is that they were just hiring people. They were hiring people in high value skill sets to simply remove them from the game. Right? When I say you were getting paid to be an ass in a seat, this is not hyperbole. This is not exaggeration. That is what was happening. Right now the world has changed. We no longer have the 1% interest rates. You know, we have no idea what's going on with the economy right now. Apparently the economy is good. The stock market is doing better than ever, which means something apparently. And so these companies are reassessing, and so they're dumping employees. They're going back to focusing on ROI. They're going back to focusing on return on investment. Is this employee going to bring in more money to the company than it costs to give them pay and benefits? If yes, keep them. If no, get the fuck out. And so, yeah, that is the environment that we're in. And I don't think this is brutal yet. Like, I'm surprised. It's one of those I look at like, oh, I'm surprised. This is a little faster than I thought. This isn't brutal. This isn't brutal. This isn't the worst that's going to happen. This is simply the layoffs that can occur. It's like the low-hanging fruit of layoffs. And really think about it. Like, you think about Microsoft, right? So they're going to be dumping 15,000 employees within 2 months. Think about this for a sec. If you've ever been a manager, if you've ever been a boss, if you've ever been an owner, imagine if eliminating 15,000 jobs was low-hanging fruit. Imagine if your company had 15,000 pieces of low-hanging fruit. Where you go, oh yeah, we can just eliminate that. Before we start to really focus on strategy and the rest of it, the first thing that we can do is eliminate 15,000 employees. That does not bode well for the future to come. Is this because of AI? Not much. I would argue AI acts as a force multiplier in some degrees, but it's also, I've talked with more and more of my buddies and that are still doing coding, still basically on the front lines. And AI is impressive, and it does help with many things. It's not, I don't know. It's not what's driving 15,000 layoffs, though. That's what I can say. It's not driving 15,000 layoffs. This is about just corporations doing what corporations do. So anywho, there you go. Another 9,000 layoffs. What do you think about this? What do you think about Microsoft dumping 15,000 people in 2 months? Does that make you feel secure about your job? And think about this too, right? Because the argument was a few years ago, well, if Microsoft lays you off or Twitter lays you off, you just go get a job somewhere else. Well, if Microsoft is laying off, and Google is laying off, and Meta's laying off, and Twitter's laying off, and everybody's laying off, yeah, where are you going to go get a job, right? That's one of the important things to consider. Is this is the most visible, right? When they do layoffs, especially large-scale layoffs, and many times they actually have to announce it. There's legal and regulatory compliance where they have to announce it. They do not have to announce when they don't bring in interns. They do not have to announce when they slow hiring. They do not have to announce when they don't go to job fairs. Right. So one of the things to think about this too is they're getting rid of this many employees, but that also means the flow of people coming into these companies has dramatically been scaled back too, which causes all kinds of interesting things. I do wonder if this is going to be start to be the impetus for people to be flowing out of the tech world. One of the curious things we haven't heard a lot with this whole boom in tech is the idea that all the people going into tech are not going into other career fields. I think about this before the Great Recession. So there was a real concern before the Great Recession that basically all the smart people in the country were being dragged into the financial services world, the quants, right? So the idea is people that would have been computer scientists, the people that would have been PhD engineers, people that would have done other cool things. There was so much money coming up with weird financial products that needed smart people to come up with those products that basically the financial companies sucked up just an entire generation of smart people to become financial gurus. And there was actually a lot of concern back then. If you go back to 2006, 2007, there was a lot of concern about what that did to society when you take all of these smart people and you basically focus them just on these financial markets. One of the curious things with the tech world, what's been fascinating is as tech has exploded, you haven't heard that same level of concern. We're not talking about, oh my golly, there are so many people going for computer science. Is this eliminating people that would have become doctors? Is this eliminating people that would have done other things that were impressive? There has been this huge push to get people into the tech world. It's one of the things I've discussed before. I don't understand it. There's this idea that tech is some stupid ass Shangri-La. Everything is built on code. Yeah, I'm sure a fucking Node developer thinks that. I'm sure a fucking Node developer has their head so far up their ass they have no idea their code actually has to run on servers that go into racks, that go into data centers, that need electricity and air conditioning and plumbing and a whole bunch of other stuff involved. But anyways, don't get me on that, right? We've had a decade of this idea, like the real career that you want to go into is technology and not building houses and healthcare and all the other things that make society move forward. And so I think one of the curious things to be thinking about this is as the tech industry just implodes on itself, is this going to start releasing more high value, intelligent, disciplined, motivated people to start seeking other professions? Could the death of the tech industry, the death of whatever the cycle of the tech industry, could this help cause a renaissance in the rest of society? The idea of you take all of these things that you learned from this world and you take it into these other verticals, right? Imagine if you've ever dealt with the construction world, it's amazing. They're slightly better than pen and paper many times. But imagine if you had technology professionals that got out of the technology world and trying to implement, construction businesses modeled after the technology world for work orders and communication systems and tracking and all that kind of stuff. Could that help be a revolution there? I think that's a curious thing to think about. And that's why you need to be thinking about more than the fucking job. Right? You need to pull your fucking heads out of your asses and stop being like, job. What do you want your life to look like? What types of work experiences are good enough. I'm not saying passionate, good enough to do day after day after day after day after day, right? That's the whole thing about work. Iterate till death, right? Um, where do you want to be in 5 years? Do you want to be a manager in 5 years? Do you still want to be working with your hands in 5 years? Do you want to be an educator of some sort in 5 years? These are the types of things that you need to be thinking about beyond the job. Because if you think about that kind of stuff, there's just a tremendous number of opportunities in the American economy to get jobs and to be successful and move on to the future. If, on the other hand, you're simply focused on job, I want tech job. I don't care if it's iOS. I don't care if it's Node. I don't care if it's networking. I don't care if it's sysadmin. I don't care if it's desktop support. Eli, I just want a job in technology. Right? If you're that hyper focused on something you don't even fucking understand, where is your path to success? So anyways, what do I know? What do I know? It's the world, right? Economies come and economies go. And the tech industry is just not a polite place. Again, I was there for the dot-com bust. I was there for the Great Recession. I've been here for whatever the hell's been going on the last couple of years. That's just right. It's about reinvention. It's about change. For myself, I did not become a consultant. Right? That's the old a billboard I used to have. I-83 in Baltimore, Maryland. I didn't become a consultant. I ended up having a college degree, military experience, my MCSE and the rest of it, being a temporary file clerk for $10 an hour at Mercy Hospital. And I was like, by God, I want to be able to go and drink a good beer again. And so I put up pull tab signs. I did not become a consultant. I put up pull tab signs and knocked on businesses' doors and wound up getting so much business that I kind of walked ass backwards into doing a business. When the Great Recession happened, right? Walked out of that, went to college. I was literally in a master's degree program and realized, wow, this information is worthless. I just had 9 full-time employees, and if any of my employees had known this information, I would not have cared. So I was like, what if there was on-demand streaming education? And built my own servers, put in a colo facility, the whole 9 yards back in 2009. And that was successful for a while. Now we're in whatever phase of my life we're currently in. But that's the thing. That's your career. Boom times, bust times, figuring out where to go forward. So anywho, those are the thoughts. And Microsoft is laying off 9,000 people, and they should be doing financially well. I think this is only going to get ever more brutal. We have not started the misery. We have not started the misery. Anywho, those are my thoughts for today. What do you think? What do you think about Microsoft dumping 9,000 people? What do you think about the idea that this could be a renaissance moment for, frankly, the rest of the society? That the tech world has just been draining the lifeblood out of our civilization for about the past 10 to 15 years, and this might actually be the time to take back our fucking society from these syphilitic bastards to build something impressive for the next generation. Or are you just crying? I don't know. Put your thoughts down below. Remember, it's the modern world of social media. Doesn't matter whether it's a thumbs up or thumbs down, a great comment or a horrible comment. It's all an interaction as far as YouTube is concerned. So put your thoughts down below. And with that, I'll see y'all later.